Dubai is often described as a modern miracle, a city of glass towers, artificial islands, and a record breaking ambition. But that description only captures the surface. To understand why Dubai has become one of the most sought after real estate and investment destination in the world, you have to strip away the skyline and go back to the fundamentals: geography, trade, leadership, and timing. Dubai's success did not begin with oil, and it certainly did not begin in the 21st century. It began with its position on the southeastern coast of the Arabian Gulf, at a point where sea routes connecting South Asia, Persia, East Africa, and wider Middle East naturally converged. The Arabian Gulf itself is unusually shallow, rarely exceeding 300 feet in depth, while historically made it ideal for coastal trade and small ports. Long before airports, highways, or skyscraper, Dubai's lifeline was the sea. For centuries, life in Dubai revolved around fishing, pearling, and trade. The city was small, its population limited, and its infrastructure basic. But it had something that would later prove decisive: openness. In the late 19th century, one port dominated Gulf trade. Lingeh in Persia, it was the center of the pearl trade and a major entry point for goods flowing into the region. However, as the century drew to a close, the Persian government began imposing increasingly heavy taxes on merchants to raise revenue. By 1900s, these taxes had become so severe that the business community in Lingeh started looking for alternatives along the Arabian coast. Initially, attention turned to the ports like Sharjah and Ras Al Khaimah, both of which already had established trading communities. But then Dubai entered the picture. In 1894, the ruler of Dubai at the time made a move that would quietly change the city's destiny. Dubai was declared a free trade port. All import and export taxes were abolished. Merchants were offered land at no cost. Their safety was guaranteed. But there was one condition, and it was fundamental. Anyone who came to Dubai to live or trade had to practice tolerance. Tribal, ethnic, and religious divisions would not influence a merchant's standing in society. Commerce would be protected from politics, and business would be allowed to operate freely. In effect, Dubai created a neutral commercial zone at a time when much of the region was fragmented by competing interests. This decision immediately attracted merchants from Persia, India, and beyond. Many settled in what later became known as Bastakiya, today called Al Fahidi. These merchants did not just bring capital, they brought architectural knowledge, urban planning concept, and long-term commercial thinking. Wind towers were built to cool homes naturally. Coral stone and gypsum replaced palm fronts, courtyards, narrow lanes, and shaded walkways created a livable urban environment suited to the climate. Dubai was still small, but it was becoming organized. By 1908, the population had grown to around 10,000 people, a significant number for the time. For decades, the pearl industry defined Dubai's economy and identity. Pearling was lucrative but unstable. Wealth flowed in during good seasons and vanished during bad ones. Prosperity allowed wealthy merchants to upgrade their homes and lifestyle, but it also created dependency on a single industry. Indian traders brought new commercial practices, accounting methods, and cultural influences. Areas like Bastakiya and Sindhaga became symbol of status and success. Wind towers rose not just as functional structures but as markers of wealth and prestige. Yet beneath this prosperity lay a vulnerability that no one could fully control. That vulnerability was exposed in 1929. The global pearl market collapsed, driven by the rise of cultured pearls and the impact of Great Depression. Prices crashed. Merchants who had been the backbone of Dubai's economy were suddenly bankrupt. Revenue dried up, trade slowed, life became extremely difficult. Dubai faced one of the darkest periods in its history. Few could have imagined this collapse would eventually become a turning point rather than an ending. Through the 1930s and 1940s, survival became the priority. Trade continued but at reduced levels. The Second World War further disrupted global commerce. Food shortages became real. British authorities distributed food rations across the region. Even in this difficult condition, adaptability defined Dubai's merchant class. Some merchants resold surplus rations to neighboring markets, finding ways to survive through entrepreneurship even in crisis. This ability to adapt, to hustle, and to find opportunities in chaos would later become one of Dubai's defining traits. By the late 1950s, Dubai was still modest. Infrastructure was limited. Electricity, running water, and paved roads were not widespread. When leadership changed in 1958, the city faced a fundamental challenge: how to grow without money. The answer was infrastructure. Not luxury, not monuments, but trade enabling projects. At the center of this strategy was Dubai Creek. The creek was Dubai's connection to the world, but it was clogged with slit and could only handle small boats. Fixing it was not optional, it was essential. Despite lacking funds, leadership raised capital through loans, merchant contribution, and regional support. The decision was risky. Failure would have left Dubai in debt with nothing to show for it. But the gamble worked. The creek was dredged. Larger vessels began docking. Trade volume increased dramatically. Revenue rose. More importantly, confidence returned. Dubai had proven it could execute large-scale projects even with limited resources. Crucially, the new revenues was not consumed, it was reinvested. Roads were built, ports were planned, infrastructure came before aesthetics. Port Rashid followed, providing modern docking facilities for growing trade volumes. Then came an even broader vision, Jebel Ali port. At the time, the idea of building one of the largest ports in the world in what was essentially desert seemed irrational. But the logic was simple. If Dubai wanted to control its future, it needed scale.
I think, the speed of the development of infrastructure was extraordinary, and that ambition was extraordinary. As outsiders, as foreigners, I suppose we sometimes wondered if it was all going to work. Building this giant port miles from anywhere then, because we were right under the edge of Dubai, quite a long way from Dubai. And was this something that was going to be a successful commercial venture?
Alongside Jebel Ali port came Jafza, the Jebel Ali free zone. Foreign companies were offered tax-free operation, full ownership, and streamlined regulation. This was revolutionary in the region. Dubai was no longer just a trading town, it was becoming a platform for global business. Oil was discovered offshore in 1966. But by then, Dubai already understood something critical. Oil was finite. It could not be the foundation of long-term prosperity. Oil revenue was treated as capital, fuel to accelerate infrastructure, aviation, and trade, not as an entitlement. By the time the United Arab Emirates was formed in 1971, Dubai was prepared. Roads connected Emirates, ports connected sea routes, airport connected the region to the world. The groundwork for modern Dubai had already been laid. By the early 1970s, Dubai had reached a critical transition point. The foundations were in place, ports, trade routes, and a functioning economic ecosystem, but the city was still far from the global powerhouse it would later become. What separated Dubai from many other regional cities at this stage was not wealth but intent. Leadership understood that infrastructure alone was not enough. Dubai needed connectivity, scale, and diversification. One of the most strategic decisions during the period was the expansion of aviation. Dubai International Airport, which began as a modest airstrip, was rapidly upgraded to handle wide-body aircraft. By the late 1960s, it was already capable of accommodating Boeing 747, the largest commercial aircraft of the time. This was not common in the region. Most cities built airports to serve current demand. Dubai built one to attract future demand. Aviation was not seen as a support function but as a core pillar of economic growth. At the same time, ports and aviation were deliberately designed to complement each other. Goods could move seamlessly from sea to air. Trade routes shortened, logistics became faster and more efficient. This integration positioned Dubai as a re-export hub, not just a destination. By the mid-1970s, Dubai was already handling volumes of trade far beyond what its population size would normally suggest. Oil revenue began flowing in during this period, but they were never treated as the end goal. Unlike oil-rich neighbors, Dubai reserves were limited. Leadership knew this early. Instead of building a welfare state dependent on oil, the strategy was to use oil revenue as seed capital to fund infrastructure that would generate long-term non-oil income. This mindset would later become one of Dubai's greatest strengths. In 1979, Jebel Ali port became fully operational. It was the largest man-made harbor in the world at the time, and many questioned whether it would ever reach capacity. The answer came faster than expected. Global shipping companies began routing through Dubai. Manufacturers, distributors, and logistic firms followed to support this growth. The Jebel Ali Free Zone was formally established, offering foreign companies full ownership, zero corporate tax, and simplified regulations. This was unheard of in the region. Dubai was not competing locally, it was competing globally. By the 1980s, Dubai had become a magnet for multinational corporations. Shipping companies, trading houses, banks, and logistics firms established regional headquarters. The population grew rapidly, driven by workers from South Asia, the Middle East, and the later Europe and East Asia. Residential demand increased, but housing development remained largely organic and low-rise. Dubai was still a horizontal city. One project symbolized Dubai's ambition during the era, the Dubai World Trade Center, completed in 1979. It was the tallest building in the Middle East at the time. More importantly, it sent a message. Dubai was open for international business, exhibitions, conferences, and trade shows followed. Global brands arrived. The city was no longer just moving goods, it was hosting ideas, capital, and decision makers. As Dubai expanded, Sheikh Zayed Road began to take shape. Initially, a simple highway connecting Dubai to Abu Dhabi, it gradually became the city's economic spine. Commercial activity clustered along it. Offices, hotels, and residential buildings followed. What started as infrastructure began urban form. This corridor would later define modern Dubai skyline. Through the late 1980s and 1990s, Dubai focused on diversification. Free zones multiplied. Dubai Airport Free Zones, Dubai Internet City, Dubai Media City, and Dubai Healthcare City were all born. Create a specialized ecosystem where global companies could operate efficiently. Each zone targeted a different sector, reducing dependence on any single industry. This was not random development, it was economic engineering. Dubai Internet City, launched in 1999, was a particularly bold move. At the time, the global tech industry was still concentrated in the US and part of Europe. Dubai offered technology companies a tax-free base, modern infrastructure, and access to emerging markets. Many were skeptical, yet within months of launch, the zone was fully subscribed, global names arrived. A waiting list formed. Dubai had successfully positioned itself as a digital hub before many older cities even recognized the opportunities. Parallel to this economic expansion, Dubai real estate market began changing shape. For decades, land ownership was largely restricted to locals and long-term leasehold arrangements. This limited large-scale private development, but as Dubai's ambitions grew, so did the need for capital. The solution came in the early 2000s with the introduction of freehold property ownership for foreigners in designated areas. This decision fundamentally changed Dubai's real estate market. International investors could now own property outright. Capital flowed in rapidly. Master planned communities emerged. Dubai Marina transformed a stretch of coastline into a high-density residential and leisure district. Palm Jumeirah captured global attention by literally reshaping geography. Downtown Dubai introduced a new urban core anchored by Burj Khalifa and Dubai Mall. Between 2002 and 2008, Dubai experienced one of the fastest real estate booms in history. Prices surged, demand seemed endless, project launched at unprecedented speed. Foreign buyers dominated transaction. Construction cranes filled the skyline. At its peak, Dubai reportedly hosted nearly a quarter of the world's construction cranes. But this growth came with risk. Easy credit, speculative buying, and aggressive off-plan sales created imbalance. When the global financial crisis hit in 2008, Dubai was exposed. Liquidity dried up, prices corrected sharply, some projects stalled, confidence took a hit. For many cities, this would have been catastrophic. Dubai responded differently. Instead of denial, there was restructuring. That was reorganized. Projects were prioritized. Regulatory framework was strengthened, escrow laws ensured buyers' funds were protected, loan-to-value limits were introduced, transparency increased. The era of unchecked speculation ended. What emerged after 2010 was a more disciplined real estate market. Growth slowed, but it became healthier. Infrastructure projects continued. Dubai Metro opened, connectivity key districts, and adding a new layer of urban mobility. Aviation expanded further. Emirates Airline grew into one of the largest international carriers in the world, reinforcing Dubai's global connectivity. By the mid of 2010, Dubai had re-established itself as a stable, credible investment destination. Tourism expanded, global events returned, long-term planning took center stage. The city was no longer chasing growth for its own sake, it was refining its position. Then came a new catalyst, long-term residency. Golden Visa, Investor Visa, and Entrepreneur Program fundamentally changed how people viewed Dubai. The city was no longer just a place to work. Temporarily, it became a place to settle, raise family, and build generational wealth. The shift had a profound impact on the real estate demand, especially in premium and lifestyle-driven communities. Dubai entered the 2020 with a mature mindset. When the global pandemic hit, the city reacted quickly. Borders reopened faster than most global hubs. Business continued with prioritized. Capital moved. Population growth resumed by 2022 and 23. Dubai experienced one of its strongest real estate cycles ever, but this time driven by end users, global migration, and long-term capital, not just speculation. Luxury markets surged, waterfront location, branded residences, and master planned communities outperformed. Areas with limited supply and a strong infrastructure appreciation became magnets for high net worth individuals. Dubai had completed its transformation from a trading port to a global wealth destination.